Receive my greetings and welcome back to the strategic management lesson. In today's lesson, we are going to learn about two concepts, that is uncertainty and strategic drift. Those are two concepts. One, uncertainty, and strategic drift, which are intertwined concepts in strategic management, where strategic where uncertainty leads to strategic drift. You understand? So let's first of all define uncertainty in the context of strategic management. Then we'll define strategic drift in the context of strategic management. Then we'll look at the relationship between the two. But I've said that the two are concepts that are interrelated. They are intertwined in strategic management. So what is uncertainty? Now, in the context of strategic management, uncertainty refers to the lack of predictability and the difficulty in forecasting future events. And that can arise from various factors, including external environment, internal environment, complexity, and so on. So uncertainty in the context of strategic management refers to the unpredictability or lack of predictability and difficulty in forecasting future events. That is the meaning of uncertainty. Uncertainty refers to the lack of predictability and difficulty in forecasting future events. Uncertainty refers to the lack of predictability and the difficulty in forecasting future events. And I've said that this unpredictability can arise from various factors like the external environment. By external environment, I mean the changes in technology, changes in economic conditions, changes in the political landscape, social trends, competitive forces, which can create uncertainty for organizations. Sometimes it's not easy to know what the legal environment will be in future, what will be the technological changes in the environment in future. That can cause lack of predictability in forecasting future events. Then there is unpredictability in relation to the internal environment. There could be factors like employee turnover, technology disruptions, shifts in organizational culture, which can also contribute to internal uncertainty. You understand? Other factors are just complexities. And by that I mean complex systems with multiple interconnected variables, which can be inherently unpredictable, leading to uncertainties in decision making. So that's the meaning of uncertainty. The unpredictability and the difficulty in forecasting future events. Then what is strategic drift? Strategic drift. Strategic drift. On the other hand, occurs when an organization's strategy gradually becomes misaligned with its external environment. Occurs when a company's strategy gradually becomes misaligned with the external environment. Strategic drift occurs when a company's strategy gradually becomes misaligned with the external environment. It is a slow and subtle process that can happen over time as the organization fails to adapt to the changing circumstances or failure to recognize emerging threats and opportunities. So, because we know an organization operates in an environment that is continuously changing, the political environment is changing, economic environment is changing, technological environment is changing, the social environment is changing. So when the organization fails to align itself with these external changes, then we say that that is strategic drift. It occurs when a company strategy gradually becomes misaligned with the external environment. Do you understand? It is a slow process, a slow and subtle process that can happen over time as the organization fails to adapt to changing circumstances. Because changes can be slow. We may have one law this year changing, another year, another law changes, but the organization does not adapt. We could have changes in even uh, customer preferences. The customers may be shifting towards other products or upgrading, but the company may not move along with that shift. We may have changes in technology where there are new technologies in maybe information technology or the way products are done. Maybe there are new machines in the industry. The company has not caught is not catching up with such changes. So these changes could be slow, but gradually, and over a long period of time, you find that the company strategy is not aligned with the external environment. Maybe the products that the company is producing are not being consumed because the customers shifted in preferences and tastes. So strategic drift occurs when a company strategy gradually becomes unaligned with the external environment. That's the meaning of strategic drift. And candidates, there is a relationship between uncertainty and strategic drift. There is a close relationship between the two. We've seen that uncertainty can create a breeding ground for strategic drift because the company may not be able to forecast future events, because where future events are not keenly or accurately forecasted, then it leads to strategic drift, which is the misalignment with the external environment. Do you get the point? So when faced with uncertain situations, organizations may resort to familiar routines or familiar strategies that have worked in the past, even if they are no longer relevant or effective. And that can lead to a gradual divergence between the company's strategy and the changing external environment, resulting to strategic drift. So that is the relationship between uncertainty and strategic drift. You understand? We've said that uncertainty creates a breeding ground for strategic drift. That is to say, strategic drift happens due to uncertainty, which is the inability of a company to forecast future events. When a company fails to forecast future events, then when these events happen, the company is caught unaware and the company becomes unable to align the strategy, its strategy, with the external environment, which is continuously changing. So that is the relationship between uncertainty and strategic drift. So that is strategic drift. Now, I can go ahead and explain briefly the stages of strategic drift, how it actually happens. Is one, because of incremental change. Let me explain. One, there is incremental change, and this incremental change is change in the environment. All right? When there is incremental change, continuous change, and the organization makes small incremental changes to strategy, but these changes are not sufficient to keep pace with the evolving environment. Where the organization makes small changes as compared to the changes that are happening in the environment. That is how it happens. There are many, maybe there is change in the political environment, change in the economic environment, and the company does not catch up with the changes. So there is, say, 70% change, but the company is doing 20%. All right? Then the gap between the organization strategy and the environmental changes widens because of this incremental change. When the company does not catch up, then the gap widens, leading to a decline in performance and loss of competitive advantage. That is now the drift. The company drifts. The gap between the strategy and the environment widens. Two, the gap between the company strategy and environmental change widens. So that there is a widening gap between the strategy and environmental changes. Then that obviously leads to a flux. That means that the organization experiences a period of confusion and instability as it tries to respond to the growing misalignment. So this is a big misalignment. So there is that period of decline or confusion as the organization tries to catch up. It tries to respond to the growing misalignment. You understand? Then after that period of confusion and instability, then the company will decline or transformation or decline. And of course, this is negative transformation. The organization either undergoes a major transformation to realign its strategy with the environment or continues to drift eventually leading to, say, decline and failure. So do you understand why companies fail? It's a process because of the incremental change. Organizations are required to keep up with the changes in the environment, both internal and external environment. And that's why you are studying strategic management, so that you can help organizations not to decline or fail. And you see how that is very possible. We operate in an environment that is continuously changing. There's nothing that is constant. And if the organization the strategy of the organization remains constant for a long period of time, yet there are changes happening, then ultimately such organizations do not succeed. So now the question arises, how can strategic drift be prevented? So it makes sense for us to address that point. Preventing strategic drift. How to prevent strategic drift? That is the question. How do you prevent strategic drift? One is through environmental scanning. Scanning the environment. Regularly scan the external environment for emerging trends, threats, and opportunities. There are companies that don't pay attention to the external environment. They may not even know when changes are happening. They don't know when the laws are being changed. They are not aware of the preferences in customer needs. Are not aware of what competitors are doing. They are not aware of changes in technology. So one way to prevent all that is to continuously scan the environment, monitor the environment, regularly scan the external environment, so that you can know what are the emerging trends, what are the threats, and what are the opportunities continuously. Because change is continuously happening. If change is happening continuously, then the scanning has to be continuous. So one way to prevent strategic drift is to continuously scan the environment. Another way is to do what we call scenario planning. Scenario planning. That is to say, develop different scenarios for the future in order to anticipate potential changes and prepare for various contingencies. The what ifs. Sit down and think, what if the government passed a law that prohibits the production of our goods, the goods that we are producing and services? Have that scenario, then think of how you can get out of it, how you can mitigate such a scenario, or in case it may happen. Or you can sit down and think, what if the technology changes in such a way that the present customers do not require the services that the company is providing? What if technology takes over the services that the company is providing? Think that way, then come up with um, anticipate the potential changes or the effects of such a change on the operations of the company, then prepare various contingencies to address such changes. Do you understand? Those are just examples of scenario planning. Develop different scenarios for the future in order to anticipate potential changes, and then prepare for various contingencies. Come up with plans if such scenarios happen. Come up with plans on how you will deal with them. You understand? scenario planning is one way to prevent strategic drift. Three, strategic flexibility. What does that mean? Strategic flexibility means building flexibility into the strategy to allow for adjustments as the environment changes. Make your strategy one that is easy to change. It has to be embedded with flexibility, such that if there are changes in the environment, then it becomes easy to adapt. Flexibility and adaptability. 4, learning organization. Learning organization. Foster a culture of continuous learning and adaptation, encouraging employees to challenge assumptions and embrace new ideas. Because employees can also be problematic. Employees can be too rigid to embrace changes. So develop a culture where individuals can learn, individuals can change any time. That can help prevent strategic drift. Encourage employees to challenge assumptions, to embrace new technologies, new ways of doing things, to be more creative and to be open to change. That is one way to prevent strategic drift. 5, strong leadership is another way to prevent strategic drift. Leaders play a crucial role in recognizing the signs of strategic drift and initiating necessary changes. So make sure there are strong leadership, there are strong individuals in leadership position, that so that they can help in first of all recognizing the signs of strategic drift and then initiating the necessary changes to align with the changes in the environment. So that's all as for the uncertainty and strategic drift. In this lesson, we defined uncertainty, we've defined strategic drift, we've explained the relationship between these two. We saw that strategic drift happens because of uncertainty. Strategic drift is the uncertainty is a breeding ground for strategic drift. We've gone ahead to identify and summarize the stages in strategic drift. You've seen what happens. There is, first of all, incremental changes. Then there is that gap between the strategy and the incremental changes, being unable to adjust or align with the changes in the external environment, which then leads to a flux and decline. Then we've discussed ways in which strategic drift can be prevented. One is through environmental scanning, scenario planning, strategic flexibility, learning organization, and strong leadership. That's all. Assignments. 1. What are the primary sources of uncertainty that organizations face in their external and internal environments? 2. Explain how strategic drift happens gradually, and what are the key indicators that an organization might be experiencing it. 3. What are the potential consequences of strategic drift for an organization's performance, competitiveness, and long-term survival? 4. What strategies can organizations implement to mitigate the risks of strategic drift and maintain alignment with their changing environment? In our next lesson, we're going to study the limitations of strategic management. As for now, bye.